Hello, everyone, and welcome to Using OData with Blackbaud Altru for our BB Dev Days 2025. This is going to be a demo session, so welcome to everyone that's here. So first and foremost, I'd like to introduce myself and my partner for this presentation. My name is Rosita Bradham. I am the Customer Success Manager, Senior Principal here at Blackbaud. And that, as you can see there's my contact information if you want to reach out afterwards. And I have with me my partner in crime, Tina Edwards. Tina, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Edwards from the Akron Zoo. I'm our development and database coordinator. So thank you for having me, Rosita.
You are very welcome. And I apologize, I'm not on camera. I'm trying to save some bandwidth, and I know my computer's been a little sketchy, so I want to make sure I have enough bandwidth here to show you all the cool stuff that we have to show you today. So today we're just going to walk through real quick, what is OData, why use it, setting up OData with Altru, using OData, and we're going to have Tina show us OData out in the wild. If you have any questions throughout this presentation, please use the Q&A link to post your questions, and we'll answer them here, or we'll get back to you after the session. As always, all of these sessions are recorded and will be available after the session ends. All right, so let's go ahead and start with the concept of OData. So we want to use OData to unlock our data's full potential, because with reporting, it's very important. You have a very robust system, and it's nice to have the ability to see and analyze that data to see where you can make improvements in your organization. So when you go to think about what do you want to do in terms of reporting, you got to think about, what do you want? So before you do anything, make sure you have a clear idea of the type of metrics or presentation that they want, and research your design concept. Believe it or not, there are tons of resources out there, including Pinterest. And if you want to use AI as well, there are tons of examples out there for you to kind of look at, but you want to have some sort of idea before you jump in. So when we jump in, that means we're going to gather our data. So there's multiple ways that you can gather your data, either through query or through export with Altru. Today, we're going to focus on using OData with query. So what is OData? We're going to be a little bit technical. This is a technical conference here. So with OData, what it is, it's basically just what we call REST or RESTful APIs, which is the representational state transfer. It's just a way of designing software that sets rules for how two systems can share information over the internet using, HTTP protocols. Another way to look at it is OData is that set of best practices for developing and using those RESTful or REST APIs. So this will allow you to focus on your business logic, creating those REST APIs without needing to worry about the technical stuff like headers, placement of things, media types, etc. And this is a nice kind of visualization of, how you go from the database to OData, and then the client's going to be that, visualization that you create. So here's another way to explain OData. It is Beyonce Festival Day, of course. We got the rodeos coming out here in Texas in a couple of weeks for Juneteenth. So I'm going to use Beyonce as another way to explain our OData. So imagine if you had a database of every song that ever was. Now suppose you just want to find all the songs for Beyonce that she's released since 2022. Well, OData is like that streaming service that helps you organize all that information in a standardized way, so you can have all different music from all the different music apps can request and share the same information about the songs and the artists that you want. So that's basically what OData is. OData is like that Spotify or that Apple Music. So why use OData? Well, quite simply, it's for access, inform, and strategize. So with our access, that's the way so you can provide visible, have your data with Altru visible and be able to look for information that you may or may not see just by collecting that data. The inform part is to let you create those dashboards and reports for the executive and board members. We could, try to create every CAN report possible, but we all know we all have slightly different ways that we want to see and do information. So with this, using OData, we can create those customized views for our stakeholders of our organization. Next, for strategize, this visual of the data will let you to see trends and develop strategies for things where you might want to do things differently, or you may want to tweak or even look at maybe including or excluding more information as you look at your data. So your data can let you know, oh, we need to hire more people during these hours or days, or this particular promotion worked really well. Let's do that again and expand on it. Okay, so let's get some technical stuff. Let's see the setting up OData with Blackbaud Altru. Those of you that went to Rebecca Sandquist's session, I think it was yesterday, she went into great detail on how to set up your OData links as well. I'm just going to focus here on Altru. So if you have Altru, you first have to set up your application route for OData. That's going to be where you basically tell the system, this is our database ID and location, and this will help create those links that are going to be attached to your visualizations. I do have that KB tip listed here, and when you download the presentation, you'll be able to link to those resources as well. How we actually generate the link for OData, so that is done from query. So even before you do the application route, if you try to click on that OData link, it's going to come up with an error message, it's going to come up blank. So what you need to do is you need to do that first step. Once that first step is done, anytime you click on get OData link from query, that's going to be the link that's going to be that specific link for that specific query. So each query will have its own unique OData link. Now you can see this information by going to that information library and clicking on that little chevron down, and you'll see more information about the query where you can get that link. You can also get it from the main query page as well. Once you click on this, it's going to open up a screen where you're going to copy that link, because this is going to be the link that you're going to use to go in and do the connection from your Altru database to Excel or Power BI or Tableau. Now, setting up the non-interactive proxy users. So in order to run these reports in a safe and secure way, we implemented the idea of non-interactive proxy users. What this is going to allow you to do is people can access data without logging into your actual database, which is very important because we don't want people to be going in and doing bad things. So using these non-interactive proxy users will give them the access they need without going into the system itself. Now with these, they are authenticated using a personal access token instead of passwords. There's no email required, so that's nice. You don't have to create dummy emails for different accounts. Now you can just have use the OData links with the proxy users. The proxy user will, how you build those, they will inherit the linked person that you created the proxy user on. So for instance, when we get into the demo part, when I get into the system, I'll show you where this is as well. But with the proxy user, you're going to create a proxy user for basically for the people who need to view that information. So if you have users that need to refresh your data, then they should have a proxy user account so they can go in and refresh that data. The system is smart enough that it will only let you see the data that you have associated with those system roles, which is that inherent permissions that's going to come from whoever you copy to create that proxy user. It's going to inherit their system roles. So you still have to have access to the data in order to see it. Another great thing is we only have to authenticate our logins every 365 days. So that's nice. You only should only ask you to update those credentials once a year. Okay, so now we're going to get into using our OData. And from here, what I'm going to do is start to get into the products. I'm going to do some screen sharing here in just a second. So one thing very important, when you're doing these visualizations, your data will not automatically correct itself. So if you've got some data entry, issues, doing these visualizations, you can't hide that. So you will need to make sure that the data is clean. And as I said before, it's all about the queries. So let's give you a couple of tips when you're building these queries. You want to avoid huge queries. Let business intelligence tools do the work. And, break things down into smaller segments, and then you can group them together in those visualizations. The one thing that's really nice about being able to use OData and query is within Altru, I can merge queries, but I can only merge queries that have the same query type. I can merge constituent queries together. I can merge sales queries together, but I can't merge a sales query with a constituent query. Well, with OData and using that business intelligence tool, we can. So with this, that you don't have to create that one massive query. You could break it up into smaller chunks. And to do that, you're going to want to use a unique identifier. So when we're looking at these different query types, find that connecting field or information where I can link the two together. So when I do bring them over to that report view, we'll be able to see, okay, I could take my sales information, couple it with my constituent information, and actually get a really nice picture of the full patron or donor. And finally, with the unique identifiers, one other thing, the field that you're going to want to look for and use the most is going to be through our system record ID. And I'm going to show this in a second. When I get to the demo, got one more slide and we'll finally get into the product and I'll show you around. But in that system record ID, every piece of information in Altru has a system record ID. This is like the database, backend database ID for that piece of information. So you can connect these different queries by using either like the constituents system record ID, or you want to look at if you're grouping things by a particular designation, or if you want to see different programs, those system record IDs could be that good anchor to connect data between two. So I did have a question here asking about, how do you set those proxy users up for others as the DBA? I will show you that in just a second on how we can build those out. So just hold that question for just a second, and then we'll be able to get to that. So with the other thing is we do have some really nice tools within Query itself that you can use and actually bring over into that visualization. So I don't know if you've noticed, but when we look at a query, the query will have something that within its criteria that will allow you to do like a sum or a last or a min, depending on what the actual piece of information is. We'll be able to go back and be able to use that information in that Power BI or Excel or Tableau. This is the same thing. It's going to use like the language that we use is called DAC language. So it's going to be very similar to that DAC language, but it's already like kind of pre-coded into the query. But it's an option if you want to use it as well. Got another quick question here about, can I merge different source view queries in Excel, or do I need to do that to Power BI? No, you can absolutely do those merges in Excel as well. It's the same exact concept. Okay, and with that, we're going to jump into the demo. So other reasons why we can use OData, again, use those other visualization tools. And where can you find more training opportunities on these BI tools? There are tons of places. I myself like to Google Stock, Google Sleuth, search the internet for content and assistance when I'm trying to learn different visualizations that I'm trying to do. Also, there's some canned learning, online learning platforms. Udemy, LinkedIn also has a great Power BI learning track too that's in there that's really good. And don't forget Blackbaud University. If you go in there, we do have some classes that are geared towards, looking at these types of visualizations. So definitely check out what we have. Okay, so we're going to go into a demo now. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to stop our initial visualization here. So I'm going to go and stop sharing. And so you're going to see my screen here in just a second. Right? And here. Okay, any moment now, you should be seeing my analysis. This is my test database, just in case you're wondering. Okay, so first I want to show you that proxy user setup. That can be a little bit tricky as well. So I had mentioned before that as we're setting up our users, if you want to try to utilize any of the automation tools, which will require the user to have access to be able to refresh, things like that, how we're going to do that is when you go into your application users where you have all of your user information, go ahead and in this column section here, you may want to go ahead and check the box off for is proxy, so you can tell the difference between which records have which records are proxy users versus a regular regular database user. So I have my proxy at the top here. When you build a proxy for a particular person, how it's going to work is you're going to go to a person's, whatever their initial login is, and we can create a proxy user right at the top of the screen here. Now, the proxy user is going to be based off of whoever is logged in. So if you are a DBA and you need to create logins for other people, if you're doing that, that's totally fine. What it's going to do, it's going to copy all of your stuff, but I could still set this up for, this could be for, Daisy proxy. And Daisy's somebody on our staff. I'm going to set this up as to have for her proxy. It is going to use my system roles to initially create the proxy, but you can go in and remove system roles. And that's what you are supposed to do if you're doing it off yourself for somebody else. So here I would basically go in and remove whatever roles the proxy doesn't need. So there is that that you'll need to do. So you'll just go in like you see me doing here and just remove all of the roles you don't need. Now, as we're doing this for our different users, the roles that you need is going to be based on the data that they're going to be looking at. So if I am going to be looking at mostly development data, really the only thing that I would need from a visualization standpoint is going to be the data, should be data, the development data entry role is going to be the role that you could use for that. You won't necessarily need to give them the director of development because we're not building hierarchies, we're not building designations. Remember, these proxies are just to show data, and a development data entry role should be able to see all of the revenue information, since they are in charge of doing data entry for gifts and things like that. You should be able just to use that role. So you won't need to use any of the you won't need to use that director of development role. However, if you're doing sales dashboards and things like that, those users, whoever proxy you're setting up for that, I would give them the sales, the different sales roles for that. So not the ticket seller role, but the guest services manager role. I would be using that for if they need to see, sales information data. If they want to do group sales information, they should still be able to just use the guest services manager to see group sales. The group sales coordinator is going to be really for digging in what type of configurations and stuff, building group sales reservations, things like that. So it all depends on the data that you want to see. You have to make sure they have the right corresponding system roles in order to see that. But if you're going to do this yourself, yes, you can. You just need to make sure you remove the roles so that it only has the roles that they need. Once you have your proxy, when you create that personal access token, this is going to be your password. So when you go to add that personal access token, this is the only time that you see this. And we try to tell you all the bells and whistles on making sure that you copy it. And before you save it, we did put a little thing in here. We won't let you save it until you check that box that says that you did copy it. So before we let you save it, so you don't forget. Once you save, this is gone. We cannot get back to this. So you're going to have to go back and have to redo a brand new proxy user, just FYI. Okay. So once we've got the proxy user set up, and actually let's use our friend Daisy here as our example here. It's going to be Daisy reports. Got my copy. Am I going to save it? All right. So the next thing that I wanted to show you guys is once we have that information, the next thing we're going to do is now we're able to go in and actually connect our information to whatever visualization we're going to do. And I'm going to show this with Excel as an example. So I'm going to first go over to my analysis, and I'm going to pick out what my query that I want to bring over into this case, our Excel. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pick up, let me go over to, there we go. Okay, so I want to pick up my my constituents total revenue query. Like I said, I already have my stuff set up for my OData link. So I'm going to click on my Get OData. This is where we're going to copy that link before we do that. So I'm going to go over here. Whoops. Going to copy. And then in Excel, and here's my Excel. For Excel, in the this is our desktop version. I'm going to go up here to data, and there should be an option where you can get data. This is going to be something you're going to see with all your other visualization as well. There's going to be some sort of setting where you can see this get data. It's going to ask you where do you want to get your data from. Now, since we're using OData, that's usually under other sources. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to click on OData feed. And then when it pops up, first thing it's going to ask me is going to be for the actual feed. That's going to be the feed that we took from the actual query. So that little get OData link, that information is what we're going to now put in here. All right, and then I'm going to say okay. Now, the next thing it's going to ask you for is going to be your, which settings you want to apply this to, and then it's going to ask for your credentials, how you're going to log in. You're going to want to use your basic as an option, your username, and this is where people sometimes get hung up. The username is actually back on when I built my proxy user. The display name is my username. So this Daisy proxy, that is what I'm going to put as my username. My password is going to be that personal access token, which I did copy and I put it in a notepad. I'm going to copy it there. Next, it's going to ask you what level do you want to select? And let me take a quick moment and explain like which one to choose. So when we're looking at this specific query, I am going to select the query, OData query option here. If you're going to be doing, if this person's going to be looking at more than one type of query, maybe you have like other queries and things you're going to bring into it, your option is going to be go ahead and select the one that has your site ID. What this means when we do it this way is any OData link that we try to bring into this Excel spreadsheet, as long as it has this path and I have the credentials to see the data based on my system roles, it's going to let me see it. And it's going to be like, oh, I already got these credentials. Here you go. So I typically tell people to select the one that is directed to your site rather than the specific query. All right, and then from here, I'm just going to say connect. If the connection is successful, fingers crossed, we will get a pop-up that says, hey, here's the data. And basically it's going to show me a preview of my query results. All right, and that's what we see here. So this is my query. So it runs my query. Here's all the fields that I had in there. And then at this point, what I typically do is I will go ahead and immediately say transform data. What that will do is that's going to bring up our Power Query. Power Query is the exact same Power Query that you see in Excel. You're going to see that in Power BI. It's the exact same window. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that over because it's on my other screen. Here we go. So here's my Power Query editor. It's the same Power Query editor we're going to see in the other visualizations as well. And from here, this is where I'm going to start, configuring my data. When I say configure, like let it know this is, Altru. We will bring out the date and time whenever we have the date. So this will be the opportunity where we're going to say, hey, I want this to be a short date. And I can format it. It automatically goes in and changes everything in that query for me, adjusts for that date. So for anything that's a date and anything that's a currency, like our amount field here, you'll have the option, to do a currency, which will change all my information into currency. So you have that different option. So I have a question here. When setting up the proxy user, does the caps make a difference in the username? I don't think so. I don't think so. I will double check that for you. Whoever sent that question in, make sure we'll get back to you. But I don't think it matters. The only thing that's case sensitive is the password. I don't think the username is password is case sensitive. All right, this is also going to be a time where you can get rid of details you don't need. The system will always, whenever I have a currency or a query, it's going to actually come out with these database IDs. You don't need this, so you can always just delete those columns. It's just the same. Now, the most important thing is the query name does not come over when you make that connection. I always, always, always recommend that you name your information here that we're using. Use the same information, the same name as we used before. I think I did my total total revenue query is the name. I'm going to use the same name. That way, if I come back and I need to make changes, I know which query I use, because you'll be surprised how quickly you forget. So I'm just going to give it my name of that. Let's see, total revenue query. All right. Revenue query. Awesome. If you need to do any sort of like additional calculations and things, that's fine. If you're going to wait and do that in your Power using your pivot tables, absolutely. You can just go save and close or save and load. And what that'll do is it'll take you back into Excel and it'll get your data, and your data is going to appear in green or whatever your default color is for your visualization here. And then from here, this is where you can go in and now you can start building that particular dashboard. Now, someone had asked, is there a way, how could we or can we connect those different information? That's also going to be in the power of your in your pivot tables that you can do that. One more quick question here. How do you deal with zip codes and keep the leading zeros? Great question. So with the leading zeros, that is a Microsoft problem. It's not a Blackbaud problem. So yes, in order to keep that, and I think I actually have one, let's go ahead and do that as an example, because I think I already have it. Right. Copy my OData link there. Then I'm going to come back to my query, same thing. Go to my data, get data, and I'm going to do from other sources, my OData feed. And because I've already done the authentication, it should just open it immediately to my transform data window where it says, okay, here's your query. Now, so here's our queries. So you have have our information with the zip codes here. What I would do is start with that transform data. Now, when you do the transform data, by default, the system will think that the data is like a general. So it could either be text or it could be a number. When you get to this point, I would make sure that for zip codes, you say that is a text field and not a number field. And that should maintain your zeros because it's going to think that it's a text field, not a number. So if you do it this way, when I come back into Excel, it should treat that as text and not truncate those zeros. And there we have it. So that's the way you can do that. So that's a great example, great question. Okay, so once you've got all your different queries together, you can have a cascading, you can have as many queries as you want here that you need to build that visualization. I'm going to go now into the next part, which is going to be what we, how we can build a very simple dashboard. And this is where I'm going to bring my friend Tina in. So Tina at the Akron Zoo built this dashboard of their summer safari event, which is a fundraising event that they have every year. And how she did it was just like how I have presented before. So she loaded up and created a bunch of queries in her database of the data that she needed. and she just dumped it right into Excel here into different spreadsheets. She did have a couple of tables that she did through that she just added, and it wasn't necessarily a query. Think if you have any goals that you want to track as well, that's not something, well, if you don't put the goals into Altru, like if you're using the fundraising goals, then you can just have a tab that's just, okay, here are our goals. So you can reference that in your tables. But she even has, this is a fundraising event. So she even brought in the expenses that were targeted for that particular time frame. And then, she has all her different tables. So all of this is those different queries. And then she created pivot tables into her dashboard here. So all of this is simply different pivot tables that she used. And I'll let, if I'm going to bring in Tina here for a second. Tina, can you talk to us? Can you talk to us about how you came up with this concept? Was it something that you came up yourself, or was it something that your leadership said, "Hey, these are the fields we want to see," and you just had to come up with the format?
I guess a little bit of both. At one point it was like, hey, where are ticket sales, kind of every week, or where's the revenue at? And so once I started using OData, I was like, I think I could probably build them a dashboard that tells them exactly where we're at any moment they want to know. And anything that I thought would be helpful, I included. So we have different levels of tickets, different levels of sponsorship. And then the way our budget is, several things are kind of in their own budget line items. So that's why you see what you're seeing broken out the way it is, or so that it's easier to tell where we're at with that particular thing for the event.
Gotcha. So when you say your different ticket types, so these are different registration options that you're just pulling in. So you have like general admission tickets and patron tickets. So these are just reservation options that you did a pivot table on. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, I did a query on our event tickets. We do use special event in Altru for all our fundraising events. And so that's how we're able to do the expenses. But I also was able to query on event tickets and pull any kind of event ticket we have for that particular event, and then use the pivot table to do the calculating of how much was purchased. And then that's feeding into the front there on the tile.
So this is like your working tab. So this is her pivot tables tab. Here's where she has all her different pivot tables. So here's her sponsored, her registration option, ticket types, and her other ticket types up here. Okay. Oh, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for us, the two different levels, the patron, they can come early and there's some extra benefits. So we like to keep an eye on it to make sure we're prepared for the amount of folks that will be coming to the earlier entry.
Oh, okay, awesome. And then I also see here you have when you did like your donations here, so you even broken out, people who gave sponsorship money versus a summer safari donation. So these are people, or these are like the donations that are on top of the reservation options, or a combination of different things?
Yeah, so I guess it's slightly confusing because we put donations and sponsorship in the same budget line item at the zoo. So
Ah,
that's why it says that. But those in particular are just the straight out donations that people gave, and how many of them we received. And then you see Summer Safari ticket there. We don't normally have any donations of like tickets, but last year we had a board member that really wanted our young professional group to be able to attend, and so was able to get some donations so that those young professionals could attend the event.
oh, that's awesome. That's a great idea. We should tell all our
Yeah.
board members to do that so other people can experience and enjoy, all
Yeah.
the, perks and things. That's awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So you did all these pivot tables, this looks really easy. It's almost like, oh my gosh, that's almost too easy, but this looks great. So you got all the pivot tables, and then this is where you kind of do your little magic, and you basically this reference. It looks like you're referencing different totals. So, for instance, in this total revenue bucket, this gross revenue is basically just taking all of the highlighted options, adding that up, and to give you your gross, and then oops, and then you got your expenses linking to your expenses table, and then
Mhm.
you got your credit card fees. So this is the credit card fees is a great example of that. I was talking about how there are some things we can't query on, like you won't know your credit card fees up front until like maybe afterwards. So, and you get that information from finance, but it looks like you just kind of typed that one in, and that
Mhm.
kind of, you did the simple math here to get that net revenue. And this is
Mhm.
like amazing because again, you were able to do this and then come back and, just simple, just very, very simple, nothing complicated at all with this. This is amazing. Great job.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. It's been
Any
very
lessons
helpful.
learned? Yeah. Any lessons learned from this, from you doing it this way and tying things together?
It's definitely a time saver for sure because you're not constantly having to pull any reports on it. And really, it just leads to, hey, can you add this? Could we do a report using OData doing this? Or like, I'll get more ideas. So it really it just leads to good things. So
Awesome. And then for next or for this year, because Summer Safari is coming up,
yes.
with is the idea, would you redo this or are you just updating what's here? What's your plan for how to do 2025?
Yeah, usually what I do is I screenshot the dashboard, and then that way we have those numbers saved. And then in my queries, I do just change the date and should be able to use the same file, is
Hmm.
the idea. Don't know if that's the best way to do it, but that's instead of having, 30 queries on the same things.
Right.
Um, and it's easy to go back and just pull a different year if we actually needed the details. But generally, what you're seeing on the front here is what is the most important. So,
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Now, I kind of took the same information that Tina had, and I was like, okay, I wonder what that would look like in Power BI. So I went ahead and I did like a quick little, just a little sample, to kind of show, some of the similarities of, using OData with Altru, how the same information that we pull from Altru in that Power Query is the same thing that we see over here in Power BI. So this Power BI, this is my developer view. So this is me building out the information and data here. So with this, what I basically did, I took I was kind of thinking big picture here. And I've talked to Tina about this, so it's not like I'm springing this on her now. But what I actually did is I actually used one query. And in that query, I said I wanted, I specifically called out all my summer safaris, so for 21 to 25. And then with that, I went ahead and was able to create like simple little bar graphs. And was also able to pull in an actual goal. So I made up these goals for 23 and 24 where I said, okay, I've got this goal, and then how do we see it next to what our actuals are, and then compare that from year to year. The other thing that was really nice about this, when I go to see this transform data, looks very similar to what we saw in Excel. It's exactly the same. It's our Power Query, just like we had before. So just like back there in Excel, you're doing the same thing. So you're going to bring out, for instance, our revenue information. And just like before, I can go in. I said I wanted to change this to a fixed decimal number for saying that this is the amount. And then, of course, if I have any uh, any date fields, I'm going to pull in, and I'm actually going to pull that, have the particular date that I want for those tickets as well. So that's just like we saw over there in Excel, we're going to see the same thing here in when we look at our Power BI and that information. Some other cool things that I will say to make sure that we look for. I know a lot of people we're talking about how do we share with this, or how do we update information with that. That is going to be depending on the Microsoft Power Platform subscription that you have. They have been changing it. So it used to be very accessible, very free to use. Now they're starting to put some pricing into that. So be very careful, be mindful of that as you're working on this. I do have a quick question. Is this something you share only after the event, or do you update it periodically leading up to the event to show ticket revenue, date, etc.? I think that's for you.
Yeah. So because it's OData and it's a live feed going into the document once it's built, it's provided to them and they can open it anytime they want and get the most up-to-date information. So we sometimes, with our event being in August and some solicitations, believe it or not, going out as early as February or even before, certain things start coming in. So we keep an eye on that.
Awesome. Great question. Yeah. So when they open it up, they just have to hit this refresh all to do that?
Yeah, they can do that. I actually have it set up to refresh when you open the document, and also like every 30 minutes as well, in case they have it open, it'll update throughout the day. But those you can, as far as how often it's refreshing, you can set that up for whatever time you want.
That's right. And you can do that because I had to do that because it was refreshing. When you get to your query, when it loads up in the green here and it has your queries and connections, if you don't see your queries and connections, I think it's under data and you'll see queries and connections. You can show that sidebar. You're going to right click. And if you go to properties, there's an option to refresh. And so you can either set it to auto refresh based on number of minutes. So, every 30 minutes, 60 minutes, once a day, you have to put in whatever number of minutes you want to do the refresh. And then it'll automatically refresh when it opens up and things. But if you want to add those, you have those options as well.
And a lot of what I have is coming from pivot tables, from the query to the pivot table to the front. And the pivot tables, it does have an option for refresh. The only option is when you open the document. So they are set to that. And I just tell our team, if a lot has changed or something doesn't look quite right, once it's done refreshing, hit refresh again so that the pivot tables can catch up with the updated queries.
Awesome. Now, I do have another question here about defining model relationships. When you're working with Power BI, the only time you're going to get into your relationship section, this model relationship, is when you need to make that connection between different types of queries. So I was talking about earlier in the presentation about how I can combine any type of query by linking them together with a unique identifier. This is how that can happen. So this is Tina's Summer Safari in Power BI. Each box that you see here represents a query that I have loaded into this particular dashboard. When I need to make a connection between two queries so I can use them in the same visualization, I'm going to find the queries. So I got these two. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the system what is that unique identifier between the two so I can link them together. So with this particular one, I have sponsor ticket report that has my registration information, and I have the system record ID of my constituent. And I'm tying that with my revenue query that is looking at just, registration options and that revenue. And I'm going to tie that together with that system record ID. That's going to be that unique identifier. So you're going to do that with any other tickets that you want to kind of make sure you have that standing link. So for instance, with my in-kind donations, if I wanted to do a visualization with my in-kind donations and maybe with my event list or something like that, I can make that connection. If I have a unique identifier, I can do that. But so far, low code, no code, very, doing this in a way that we need to, um, make it as easy as possible. That's when I would need to use modeling, is when I need to make that connection. So then I can go in and say, I can create a new visual that has, for instance, that SS ticket and my SS sponsorship. If I wanted to use these two together, I can use both those information in a visualization, and it'll know that it will work because it knows that they are connected with that unique identifier. So I can break out like a query here where I can have the name from one query and actually connect that with the fees from the other query. So if I wanted to add, add the fee to that, it'll add the fees and tell me the difference, the connection between the two. So that's one way we can do it. And there's also a bunch of other different visualizations that you can do with these as well. Some of the things, this is another view that I took, just like her dashboard, but I kind of just did it in a more visual way, using graphics and tiles and tabs and things like that. All of this stuff is super easy to do. And please look out for more of these informational kind of like demo. Let's talk about Power BI coming to Altru, especially for our BBCon that's coming up. It's going to be in October in Philly. Tina and I are going to expand on this. We've got some really cool visualizations that we're going to show you guys for BBCon, including things like, if I need to bring in a API for some other completely different information. Those of you in zoos and gardens and aquariums, this is taking my ticket attendance and putting that on top of our weather app APIs to tell us what the weather was doing that day and seeing that correlation between the two. So yeah, it would be, those are some of the things that we are currently working on. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and do a quick wrap up. I do want to say thank you so much. Please, like I said, we got our BBCon coming up. Please look to that. Also, look for more Altru content in next year's BB Dev Days. This is a great showing. I know we just had a few, but we're going to have more of these with just Altru. So keep learning, keep sharing, and don't forget to let your CSM know of all the cool stuff you're doing so we can get you in on some of these sessions so you can actually present and, tell other people how you're doing. But with that, I would like to thank you, and I'd like to thank Tina as well for joining me today. I hope you got something out of this. Please take the moment to fill out our survey. Let us know how we did, how we can make this better, and just thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.